So, welcome again to the podcast on grief. Today, I have with me Vivek. Hi, Vivek.
I
Vivek, it's very difficult for me to explain or introduce Vivek, but then I'll try my best. Vivek, according to me, in one line, is a man of wonder because he always keeps on surprising me with how he pushes himself to do better. But more formally, Vivek is an IAS officer of the 2020 batch in the Madhya Pradesh Cadre. He's incidentally my senior as well. He's currently posted as the sub-divisional magistrate in Baihar as an SDM, and previously he was an engineer from NIT Trichy and an MBA from IIM Calcutta. That's where we incidentally met. And he has also worked with Samsung for a while in Gurgaon. My friendship with Vivek goes back almost 11 years now. And I think something that binds us is the personal as well as mutual sharing of grief we have had over the years. And I think with that context, I think we will begin. So welcome again, Vivek, and let's get to the point straight away. What is or are the kinds of grief you have seen, and what would you like to talk about today?
uh, yeah. First of all, am I smiling too much for a podcast on grief?
No,
Is
it's
it?
okay.
Yeah, yeah. What are the kinds of grief? Let's talk about. One is, I think, the grief um, of losing someone that I can talk about because I've lost people. Um, what other grief? The grief of being alone. I don't know, for
Hmm.
a long time to pursue things. The kind of loneliness you have to put on yourself. So that is another grief I would like to talk about. Apart from that, yeah, since we're all part of this exam, obviously the grief
Hmm.
of not making it through. Yeah.
Hmm.
So these are, I think, vaguely, if I can, something comes up while talking, I can talk further.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first one. I think that is the most personal one you have and might be the most trickiest to speak about, but let's try and explain what happened. And if you want to start with what
Yeah.
was your initial response to it?
Ah, so we talk about losing a person, and losing a person unceremoniously, losing a person because of old age, like a grandparent, doesn't hit you that much. Most of the
Hmm.
time, unexpected death is what is difficult to manage, because that's where grief really is uh, comes without, you know without any kind of warning. So I
Right.
lost my father while I was preparing for the exam.
Hmm.
mm, and that happened in like my exam was close by. Also, the prelims was 10 days or 15
Right.
days before the prelims exam. I had lost my father. And see, the issue of getting that news and the initial response, I mean, before I come to the initial response, the issue of getting that news is, where are you getting the news? It
Hmm.
really matters. If you get it with your parents, with the rest of your parent and your sibling or someone, I think it's easier to manage. If you're getting that news locked up in a room in Rajendra Nagar with no one to talk to,
Hmm.
with people who are around are not exactly people whom you know for a long time, they are competing with you, so you really don't know what to do. So immediately when the issue that grief had hit, uh, and was difficult to manage, was because of the place where I was in, and I was in a place where people don't even speak my mother tongue, so there's no one
Hmm.
around. So that really mattered. That really had an issue initially. For me, that was difficult to whom to talk to. So that was there. What my initial reaction, since I was getting calls from the morning itself for two, three, four calls. I was in a space where I was not attending calls because I've been preparing for the exam, so I was ignoring people. So a lot of
Hmm.
calls were coming from morning, so I was expecting something has happened, and
Right.
especially my father's relatives were calling, and my father was an alcoholic, so I was expecting somebody might be hospitalized or so, and which
Hmm.
is usually the case. It has happened multiple times across my life also, so I was expecting something like that. So I didn't pick up the initial calls, but when the calls frequency had really gone up, that's when I picked up the call. And then uh, then it was difficult to understand that he had passed away. Uh, Initial response was tears only. I cried.
Hmm.
Yeah. I went to the bathroom and cried. That's easier, I think, for
Hmm.
men.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. I cried. And
But
my difficult thought, yeah.
no, no, please go ahead.
My difficult thought was, which was put on me was that you have to tell your sister. So
Hmm.
that burden nobody was ready to take, neither my mother or my relatives, because she was abroad. She was in Kuwait. She was
Hmm.
married and she was with her husband there. So to tell her that, so that was the other thing I was really tensed about. While I was also in tears, I have to manage another person's grief. My grief is easier to manage because I have been living alone for a long time, and I was strong
Hmm.
because of the kind of life we have lived. But to tell someone else who has not had a hard life and not had
Hmm.
much of a difficulty to manage them, that is more difficult. So I was tense because of that.
Right. And
Yeah.
how you, I noticed that you had an exam 15 days after the incident, and I incidentally wasn't there. I was at some other place at that point of time, so you didn't have even we couldn't speak at that point of time.
Yeah.
How did you manage the? I mean, did you place the grief aside for a while, or is it possible to do that till you give something, till you give the exam, or
No.
was it along with you when you were preparing for those
It was
15
there for
odd
10,
days?
15 days for sure. Yeah. For 10, 15 days, that's sure. But one thing I've learned, also because I was with you also, the kind of planning we have done,
Hmm.
though we don't push things to the end. So I had done pretty much well for the exam in terms of revision,
Hmm.
in terms of getting things in place, getting the syllabus covered. So the exam was not affected as much.
Right.
Last 10 days, anyways, I was gonna just brush up things.
Hmm.
And so that did not, so the planning really did help. So what I always think now as an afterthought is that
Hmm.
if you are really disciplined and if you do your planning well in life, for lot
Hmm.
of things, for things you really understand, when the unexpected thing happens, you would not be thrown apart.
Right.
You would not be thrown apart from other, your usual responsibilities and your targets and other things. You wouldn't be thrown aside because
Hmm.
you continuously plan, you continuously put effort in things, and you also are someone who are responsible about things. So that
Hmm.
really helped. Yeah.
So
So my
something
exam was
similar,
not effective.
right? I think something similar I read about, and I've been reading Stoicism a bit. Something similar they mention is if you think about death, not your death, but just death once in a while, it prepares you for unexpected circumstances coming up in life. So maybe possibly you did the same thing not consciously,
Hmm.
but then it happened, and now in retrospect you think it's a good strategy to follow.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think you
Yeah.
mentioned,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So one thing you mentioned was to tell somebody, to tell your sister how
Hmm.
something like this has happened. What were
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
other challenges apart from whatever we have spoken about? You were studying, you were alone. Uh,
Uh,
what were the longer term
yeah.
challenges? This was immediate, but what in the longer
Yeah.
term was difficult?
What in the longer term, one thing is I was not speaking to my father for a while,
Hmm.
and he had called me in between also, but I didn't pick up like 3 months before the incident has happened. I didn't pick
Hmm.
up because he has largely been irresponsible, and I, I know, so I was ignoring him, though we had met like 2 3 years before. So that really pains. Then you kind
Hmm.
of start thinking that I should have picked up that, or maybe the course of things would have been averted. So this kind of a calculation that starts running in your head, if this is the death he has had, and if you were an active participant in his life, maybe this could have been avoided. I mean, that question lingers. It
Hmm.
lingers. It lingers very heavily. Uh, I know a tendency to blame yourself
I know. Yeah.
for things that has happened. Then, yeah. So that was the first 3 4 months. Even today, I think that is there.
Hmm.
But okay. Yeah, I think that
But
happens with anyone.
like
Yeah.
having experienced something not similar, but in the same line. I think something that helped me, and maybe if you could relate, is to stop asking that question of why. Could I
Mm,
have done
mm,
something? Like, do you
yeah,
think that
yeah.
is at some point you stop, you
Mm,
let it stop at that, there's no point thinking about the randomness of things.
yeah, that's so true. Yeah, 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 yeah. Because then you think that if that was the case, you wouldn't be here. If I
Mm,
was actively participating in my father's life and trying to manage everything, I wouldn't be, sorry to say this, successful, yeah, in life,
mm,
because I managed
mm,
my life. I managed my sister and my mother well, because I did not try to enter my father's life and change it, because it was very difficult. If I
mm.
had put efforts there, then I wouldn't be here. So
Right.
that's how I look at it.
No, I think
Yeah,
that's
my success
why
has to.
I called you man of wonder, because the resilience you have shown, and things what we have spoken a lot, and what I have seen you go through in life. It's very
Yeah,
easy to go down that slippery slope, and take to
yeah.
alcohol, take to other things, other vices,
Mm.
and then not focus on. So I think that is, I mean, one of the things I have possibly learned from you, to keep going, to keep going at things, and
Yeah,
to
yeah,
believe that something good will come out of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so
yeah. And sorry.
yeah, go ahead, please.
What was I saying? I was about to say something. I forgot. Huh. Uh, yeah. I'm sorry. That thought just
No
skipped my
issues. I
mind.
think it'll come up sometime.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to know is, who were the people around whom you think helped you through this period of grief, and how, what did help you? Why I'm asking this is because people sometimes don't give as much importance to people around them when they're very alone, when they're facing a trauma
Mm,
or grief, and they go very inward. You're thinking about things a lot, you're in your head a lot, you don't share.
mm,
I personally feel that I have been helped from talking to people. uh,
mm,
80-90%
mm.
times it does help you in some way. So what has been your experience?
Yeah.
And you need not name names, but then of course you can tell what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, my experience is venting out grief is an important thing. But the point is, whom you went out to, it's extremely important. If you don't have friends who are really close, there's no
Hmm.
point. There's
Hmm.
no point of that cosmetic, trying to tell someone that this has happened, and they don't know you also well, so they don't know the response. They don't know you personally, so they don't know to calibrate their response to your grief. So it's very important that you talk to people who are only very close to you, because
Hmm.
losing a person, losing someone intimate, is a very tra- uh, it's traumatic, and it's also someone who is mature can also understand and respond to it. You might talk to someone, and that response would further put you in grief. Yeah,
Right.
so it's very important that you find the right person and then talk. And most of the time, a mature person's reaction to such things is largely silence, to be around when there is an immediate requirement,
Hmm.
and to a bit of to console you a bit. Otherwise,
Hmm.
there's nothing much here, right? But for
Hmm.
that, a physical presence, I think, is largely important.
Hmm.
Body plays an important role
Right.
in curbing grief. Yeah,
Hmm.
physically, if you are available, it's extremely important. Over the phone, it doesn't matter whom you are talking to. It doesn't really matter, because you would like to feel someone's touch. It
Hmm.
really matters if someone puts a hand on my shoulder. That really matters. And there are some
Right.
people who actually think that there are like in friendships also, I've seen that people don't keep a hand over you. Those kind of
Hmm.
people are rarely good with dealing grief, because a hug and a touch is really important.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And do you think that such grief ever goes away when it is so deep? Does it ever go away, or do you figure out a way to manage
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I think it's also sad to say, but I've forgotten about my father now.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah, I mean, his thought comes once in a while, but I am rarely sad about it. I don't know that it's very selfish of me. I'm not sure, but
Right.
I'm not sad about it. I'm not sad about it, because I've built another life, which sadly excludes that person, because it has to be excluded. It's a natural
Hmm.
thing, right? He's not here, so I built a life which is largely exclusive of my father. Though I think of him, his thoughts do come, but I'm not sad. I'm not sad. I'm not sad.
Hmm. No, I think
I
that's a
don't know
good
how to
thing.
put
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, somehow it's a
Yeah,
good
and
thing.
yeah, because we have to live a life, a well balanced life, a happy life, and somewhere I think to be selfish to some extent is important
Mm.
for you to manage things like this.
And I think I'll go back to something you said earlier, the other kind of, I mean, moving on from this, seems like a good place to stop talking about this. You talked about the grief of being alone, right? Could you just
Yeah.
extrapolate on how, uh, what kind of loneliness are we
Mm.
talking about?
Um, the idea is why are you alone in the sense that once you get there's a usual getting alone in the sense that you move out of your house and then you come to a
Mm.
college. I mean that happens to everyone. Now
Mm.
the point is if you are someone extremely ambitious and with limited
Mm.
amount of resources, right? A person with limited amount of resources and a lot of uh, ambition,
Mm.
that the loneliness comes there because then you have to take
Mm.
choices. Your friends from your engineering time, they have decided to be in a particular job and get married and particular trajectory of life. They have nothing against them. It's a wonderful thing to
Right.
do. Is there a noise?
No, no, this is
Uh,
okay.
yeah. So that's one thing that it then you have decided to pursue a different course of life. Because you have all your friends. They have the success is very relative in some sense. That some people go
Mm.
to an NIT and they think it's done, and it's
Mm.
okay. It's done. Yeah, to get
Right.
into an NIT Trichy or your NIT for that matter also. It's an important thing. A lot of us come from extremely middle class backgrounds where for generations they have not cracked into a national level institute, and we have
Right.
done it. Lot of us have done this, and we for them success is done, and for me also it should have been done. There's no issue in it, but then there is something else in you, right? It has always been
Mm.
there. It has always been there when you're a student in your school. It has always been there. You look at others, you see, no, I'm going to go forward. Not enough.
Mm.
So it's always there, and that has been the driving force in every sense. So I went to Chennai. People have started living their lives. They're planning their marriage. They're planning their vacations and everything. But I've decided to go to another institute, another more important,
Mm.
more which requires a much more effort to get to
Mm.
another exam. So again, you have to be lonely. Most of the time, your friends will be outside. You can't go, and most of the time, you can't live with your friends because you need some amount of space where nobody disturbs you, and you have that pressure and tension and all that things building up, and that loneliness it exists again,
Mm.
right? And you have to fight it. You have to fight it, and you can't go back home. So that and to be okay with that loneliness, the loneliness that success needs, and that is very sad.
Mm.
You know why? It is sad because you're not doing right to a lot of people
Mm.
in the sense that you're not giving attention to things you should give attention to your sister. My sister's marriage. I have free road on my sister's marriage. I think I'm still sad about it, and she still has issues with
Mm.
it. But yeah, but once you are in that space and you are working, and then you get to spaces where your work is not going well, then you don't have
Mm.
anyone to back you up also. So
Right.
that loneliness I always find was extremely sad, and
And I
I
think
found it difficult to deal with it also.
it's very
Yeah.
relevant that you're speaking about this, and it has just occurred to me that, you know, we have shared almost the past what 11 odd years speaking about what we
Mm.
want to do, even right from the time of doing an MBA and then getting into the services. We've always pushed,
Mm.
what they call the hustle culture nowadays, that you need to keep on
Mm.
being continuously
Yeah.
productive. You need to
Mm.
shut yourself off. Uh, Sorry. You need to shut
Okay.
yourself off, and you need to be continuously upgrading yourself to be better in this world and earn more money and then earn more and then invest in something and then earn more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many people might be in a similar situation as you have mentioned. That it's very difficult to even tell people why you're doing something till the time you get the success out of it.
Mm. Yeah. And the other thing is, where do you stop? People like me and you, like we still don't know where to stop. We still continue to push,
Right.
and that at times is really sad. I think there is some amount of sorrow associated with it that you're done so much and still you want to do more.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know. Even today, I mean, Is this enough? My biggest question in life is this enough? Is it done?
Hmm.
Is it enough?
Hmm.
And you have only you to answer that. So
Hmm. But it is
yeah.
in some sense it is sad that one is pushing oneself for oneself,
Mm.
leaving other things apart, and then sometimes you don't think about why you're doing it. You
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
pushing yourself, but then the only thing is that you're used to pushing yourself. That's what I realized, that you're
Yes.
used to pushing yourself
Yes,
and doing
yes,
better. And in
yes.
in that somehow you have this bias that the people you have left behind possibly is some form of, I am not saying completely, but some form of mediocrity that you want to go away from, right? And I think this is a
Yes.
controversial thing to say, but you
Yes.
do feel
Yes.
like that. I mean, I want to be
Yeah.
completely honest about it. So
Yes,
what do you
yes,
think? I
yes.
mean, how do you deal with that?
Yes.
Uh,
Mm. Especially anyone like friends or family or anyone, when I look back upon them and I've come uh, fa- far, say, a lot of times we show humility in spaces we shouldn't. I have done much better than my most of my family, at least.
mm,
So now when I look back at them or when I go and talk to them also, it's very difficult because my thoughts are different. I've grown fast. I've grown more. My my ideas are different. So it's very difficult to strike a chord with them. So
mm,
more and more you are pushing yourself and also being successful, you become alone. And there are very
mm,
few people like you or very few people around me who have also pushed themselves, and I can share a lot of the things with them. But the moment
mm,
I am with another set of people, I am bored. Sorry
mm.
to say, I'm bored. Yeah, yeah, I'm bored. I get bored.
And
Yeah.
that then translates into some form of loneliness that you're talking about. And
Yes, yes, yes. And I have not no one to blame. I have to blame myself on
of
this. I'm
course,
not
right,
putting that. I'm not putting that on anyone. It is the. I think it's the cost of success also. That this kind of a
right.
grief and this loneliness that is associated with it, it comes with it.
Mm, mm. But
Yeah.
having seen this kind of success now multiple times with your IIM and everything, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you have cleared the UPSC twice. Uh, how do you think it is justified, this cost?
Mm-hmm. This cost, yes, 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 always justified. I would always be happy to live right now where I am an IAS officer than 3 years ago where I'm just an IIM Cal.
Mm,
It is much like I feel much better about myself
mm,
that I have this also with me now.
mm,
Yeah, any day, any day, any day. I'm totally okay with that cost.
right.
I'm totally okay with that cost because a lot of things which I think when I was preparing and I was selfish or anything, a lot of things I can undo it and repair it
Mm,
since I'm here.
mm,
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
So linking that to what we are speaking about now, the grief of preparation, the grief you see in preparation. Our
Mm.
preparation hasn't been very, spitfire quick. It has taken some time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it is not easy to be in an examination like UPSC for 3 to 4 years, 5 years, and keep yourself motivated. What was the biggest thing that was an irritant for you as you prepared?
One of the biggest issues that I faced is that the exam itself, there's no effort output correlation. It is so
Mm,
true. It is so true. There's no effort output correlation. So that is really unsettling.
mm,
So you put everything and still you don't get an output which you desire. Then you
mm,
really question yourself what has gone wrong, and you should be really sad. It's not
mm,
that you have done something like a very mediocre effort and then you didn't get through. You put everything. You put, and every time you're putting everything because you've quit your job, you quit your well-paying job, and
mm,
you have not seen money your entire life much. And the
mm,
first time you are actually earning, uh, and then you have to quit it and come to an exam and fight it out here, put everything, and still there's no output. I
mm,
don't want to compare it saying that there were other people who had done less than me, who have got through. They may or may not be correct. But then I look at myself, I put my marks.
mm,
Now what? Now what? And that is where that sorrow hits really. Now you can't go back. You're going back, you are behind a lot of other people. It's a very competitive world. I live in a
Yeah.
competitive world, and I am part of that competitive world. I completely embrace it. Even if it is my friend who is in the corporate, a very close friend, but he is 1 year, 2 year ahead of me, it is difficult for me to digest. It is extremely difficult for me to digest. I have to
Right.
go back and start a life where I am behind. It's very, very difficult. So that is where really it hits you. I'm really, really sad that I put everything into this, and everyone thinks that I've quit a job and I've come here with purpose and with a lot of effort, and he's going to get through. And those expectations suddenly fall down. Like I didn't even clear prelims. Let's say what like how do I explain it to them? Because they don't understand. And that really hits you, because then people will think you, okay, fine, that was just you being all dramatic about it, or not being honest about it. No, I have put everything. I can't go back. I can't go back because I'm behind there and I have to live here thinking of
And you
what to
have
do next.
pointed out something very interesting. I think two, three things I've gotten out of this. One is that we both realize, and many people who are giving UPSC realize that they are sparing their youth, for this exam.
Mm,
The possibly the
mm,
best, the strongest, the healthiest years of their life, they might be
mm.
putting into this. And not just that, when you're putting the effort here, you're sitting for hours, you have backaches, you have health problems, you're eating a lot, sometimes you
Yeah,
put on weight. Those are also
yeah,
micro griefs you're accumulating along the way,
yeah,
right? And
yes.
and it's these are small evils who keep on hovering around you and keep irritating you
I'll tell you
every now
today.
and
I'll
then.
tell you today. I'll just tell you today. I am
Mm.
extremely disciplined. I go to gym every day, but my body doesn't
Mm.
respond the way it would have responded at 28 or
Right.
26. And at
Mm.
28 and 26, I could have had these Instagram bodies, which these
Mm.
people show off on reels. I'm so sorry I'm saying this.
No, no, of
But
course. Mm.
yeah, but today when I put that the same effort, my body is not responding.
Mm.
That time is gone. That time is spent on exams.
Mm.
Spent on exams. The Javani, I mean, that entire youth is lost. And there is
Mm.
grief. There is complete grief. And that's why I want to take every inch of the success. People who tell me oh, you should be much more humble coming into, I mean, becoming successful. No, most of the time, yes, I am humble, but it shouldn't be imposed on a successful person that he should be humble, because there are
Mm.
costs he has suffered which cannot
Right.
be retrieved. There are spaces he
Mm.
has lost. There are people he has lost.
Mm.
Relationships that you have lost. Humility cannot be, as a mandate on people who are successful. It
Mm.
is it is a personal choice whether I have to be humble or not. That's a personal
Mm.
choice. I can still be okay with an arrogant, successful person. That's what I'm saying. I am not,
Mm.
but I'm
Mm.
still okay with.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Right. So I
right.
think something connected to what we were speaking, and I just realized there's also a grief related to fall of pride. For a person like who has,
Mm,
as you said, somebody getting up the ladder, getting to NIT, getting to an IIM, with all those laurels on your back, and then you don't clear prelims.
mm, mm.
That's also something that like sticks with you for months. I mean, I personally
Yeah,
have
yeah.
seen.
Same, same, same.
How do you get out of it in context of this exam, like, or personally
Yeah,
also in other context?
I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth. Whenever I fail in such a manner, I shut down. I don't talk to my friends.
Mm.
I don't talk to, not that I don't want to talk to, because when I talk to them, I don't know what to say, because I failed. So I don't want to confront it with, at least with them. So I shut down things, and then I don't restart that entire relationship unless, I mean, till I have succeeded in that effort. That's
Mm.
what I do. I immediately shut down. People ask me, why are you like this? Why? I don't care. I have to take care of myself. I have to preserve myself, because there
Mm.
are more fights and wars ahead.
Mm.
Hence, that is what I do, especially in this kind of a situation where you have done extremely well, and suddenly, because of the randomness of one exam, where you put all the effort and still you have not got through, and everyone looks at you like, my God, you came from IIM, and someone who is from some random engineering college has got. This is the exact kind of sentence thrown at me. I'm not
Mm.
belittling anyone. The random engineering college has cleared. What are you doing? Like, what is this then? What does this show? I mean, people are sadistic. A lot of people, sadly, there are a lot of sadistic people around you than sympathetic. So when that kind of a thing happens, and I don't know why it happened, because I put all my effort, I shut down. I shut down, and I
Mm.
make sure that I now concentrate only on this, and I will get through that kind. The
Mm.
grief and the rage. It's a combined grief and rage. It propels me to do better.
Right. So are you saying that you shut out the grief or you shut down from people and focus on one thing?
Yeah. If I shut down people and focus on one thing.
Right. But
Yeah, the
that
grief,
grief is kept apart.
the grief, for me, the grief works in a manner of fear. It transforms into other things. Like one
Hmm.
is rage on me because how did this happen, and secondly, it transforms into a fear because of that. I'm sad also, and I've become very afraid because I don't know what to do now. I have to do this again, and I have to change my method. That also is there because my early method might not have worked. So it transforms, that emotion transforms into other emotions. It doesn't stay as grief.
Hmm.
It transforms into other emotions like fear. Yeah.
So very interesting
And
that you
rage also.
speak about fear and grief because what I realized is once you face a certain kind of trauma, let's say losing somebody or not getting through the exam, that fear perpetuates into the next time you are looking at a person or an exam. Like every time you feel that you might lose somebody or you might not do well in an exam or something bad might
Mm,
happen.
yeah.
How would you
Yeah.
tackle that? I mean, you have had multiple such things during your time, so.
That's a difficult question. I don't know how to answer it. Wait, which is extremely true. It's extremely
Hmm.
true. I think we are looking very closely at these things. This is really good. That yeah, it's so true that once you have failed and again when you're appearing, and we are all human beings. We can't drastically change our methods. We don't come as a very different person for the next exam. It's mostly us again with a bit more effort and few tweakings. And you are again in that same place, and you have done almost the same things, and your exam has gone the same way.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I really don't know how I leave it I leave it to luck or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And also, I
That fear
think
exactly is that.
in this exam, I think
Mm,
both of us had the same reaction when we got through to the rank we wanted. We were
mm,
content rather than being joyous or being happy. I think it was
mostly.
contentment of leaving this grief behind
Yeah, yeah.
rather than taking on something forward. I mean,
And let me
that's
also put this
very
through.
ironic.
Let me also put this through for this exam. What is this needless elation? Most of us clear this exam. Very few would have gone it in one, done it in one go. I've gone through like 2, 3 years, 4 years. What is to be so elated about this?
Hmm.
You know, like I am relieved, that's one thing, but what is to be so elated that I got through this exam? My god, there's
Hmm.
nothing to be elated. We have lost too much for an exam, and I don't know how it
Hmm.
works in another space, in another country, in another world. They might even look down upon us
Hmm.
spending so many years for one exam. Our society is structured in this manner, and I am parcel and part of it. I would to tone myself to get to those positions in society where I'm respected the most, and for me, it's not a deal to spend this much for it because I think it
Right.
pays off in the society. But someone else looking at us from any other vantage point, it looks like an epic in failure, isn't it? Like 4 years you write the same exam and you didn't get
Hmm.
through, and the fifth year you have got through, and you're so elated, and we go on speaking about how difficult, and I mean with mirth. I don't understand.
Hmm.
We should be
Maybe
relieved,
that,
yes.
yeah, that context, I think most aspirants, as we call them now, don't have.
Mm,
The
yeah,
outside context, the perspective of possibly, what would people in France be doing? Are
yeah.
they really
They'll
struggling for an
they'll be
exam
having a
for four
life,
years?
and they have a life. I think. Yeah,
And
yeah,
another
yeah.
thing, I think something you also mentioned, and I had kept it as a question is with grief, and specifically the kind of grief you and I have seen, there is disappointment, and at the same time, there is
Mm,
rage. There's this
mm,
righteous anger that, why me? Why is it happening to me? I'm doing everything right.
yeah,
How is
yeah.
that resolved? I mean, I would want to know your point of view.
Difficult question. My God, how is that? So I don't know. These writers, I still have it. I still
Hmm.
have it. Why did I spend so many years? My God, I've been a good student. I've been doing everything right for that exam. I don't know why I did take time. I don't know how that anger is resolved.
But can you
I really
dissolve
don't
it
know.
with now once you're in the job, you have been in the
Mm,
job for
mm,
almost
mm.
like 3.5, 4 years now.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
there some
One
offset?
thing that Yeah, one thing that kind of thing does to you, where you are sad that you didn't get through and where you had enough grief. Once you get into the service, you are much more normalized. You
Hmm.
understand things are not ideal. The service is also not ideal.
Hmm.
So a lot of things that you see in the service that you have to go through in the service, you are it's easier to deal with it. It's easier to deal with it. There are a lot of times you have been questioned, and a lot of times you have been put blame on where you couldn't do anything about it. There are two in a public service, in let's say in any district administration, which I'm a part of now. The variables are too many. It's not like a corporate job. You sit in a desk and you have 50 salesmen here and 40 there, and this is the market here and that is the market there. Why did this market fall, and why did that market pick up sales? There are easier ways to understand these things. Now we are looking at different population, a completely different population with angles of caste, religion, class divides, and all kinds of stuff. The resources that you have very less in that space. Also, at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, you are blamed, and you shouldn't be sad about it. Because that's how it is. That kind of going through that kind of a random process and having that grief in that time, understood things will be random within the service also, and there'll be time you will be pulled out for nothing for yourself to be blamed for, and you still be. I think that has really helped me, and public service is extremely important. Yeah.
And within public service, I mean, as an IAS officer, and especially in the field, and this I think I'm asking you because you have seen the field for a few years now. There is constant grief you see with people who are lesser fortunate than you every day. You know, there's somebody who has lost a husband, she's not getting pension. There's somebody who was bit by a snake, died, the family doesn't have any bread earner. You know, these kind of things you see in an everyday job, and it's a job, you know, you are facing this in an everyday job. This is grief. I have not figured out a way yet to deal with it. Have you? I mean, have you learned to dissociate with it, or have you learned to empathize with them? Because this is something people don't realize. People think that the life of an IAS is very glamorous. But I would like to bring out this side of the truth also.
Yeah. Now, empathy kind of a thing, right? I mean, you've also gone through a lot, and then you see people going through a lot. Now, empathy can be practiced for an individual or two individuals or three individuals around you, right? Now, once you get into the service, the scale explodes. You have 25 people every day outside your SDM office with all kinds of grief. And some of them are lying, some of them are telling the truth. And to be honest, 15% are saying the truth, the rest of them are lying. That is what I have understood after getting into service. So the challenge is, how do you separate them? So if you empathize with everyone, you are fooling yourself, you are fooling everyone because they are fooling you. So it's totally okay. One thing that you have to understand after getting in is to be brave enough to see people. Okay, these people are poor. They have real issues, and you have to resolve them. And if you take it all upon you, you won't be able to work at all. So one way to deal is gradually develop a mechanism where you can tell the people who are lying from people who are actually genuinely sad. And that is done by, that's a personal method to do it. What I do is I increase the cost. So I won't meet them initially. If people are really sad, they would do multiple attempts to meet me. And people think the IAS officer is never available. My God, I go to the office, they are not there. Because I have to practice that as a survival skill here. For me to seek out people with real, genuine issues. It's sad, but that's how the society is. That's how the resources are. That's how that's how much problems we have, and I can only resolve the most important problems for the most difficult people.
Right, because you're also stretched for bandwidth. You're also stretched for bandwidth.
I cannot resolve. Yeah, and I cannot resolve a problem that is minor just because that's a minor inconvenience. They also come to my office, but minor inconvenience you deal with yourself. We are in a country with grave problems. I will put myself and all my energy to solve them. So for me, that cost has to be imposed. One is that. So even if someone comes and cries, I have a baby, I don't have anyone, immediately I don't pay attention. I don't. Initially I used to be very sad, and I used to run after that person. Kya hua uska? Fir main aur kuch nahi kar pata. There's nothing else I can do. So what I do is I completely tell them there's no need for crying. If you cry in front of me, you're not getting anything. I make sure that they don't cry in front of me. I don't like it because I have a tendency to get manipulated, and the tears might or might not be right. Then I will listen to the issue, and what I do is then I said, then okay, fine. Then I get it somewhere or the other. If I think, and it's again a personal thing, if I think that has some tinge of truth in it, once you start working, you'll understand how do you How are you able to say something is true or not? Then I put a investigation through the Patwari or any other village officer and find it. Yeah. And one
And
thing
this is
about getting
something,
into service.
yeah,
Yeah,
please,
sorry.
please. No, go ahead.
One thing about getting into service is knowingly or unknowingly you are gonna get cynical to a lot of things. Yeah. And the
So,
challenge is to keep the human in you. Yeah, please.
no, so I think very rightly you pointed out that you have to separate the wheat from the chaff in some sense and get to the real issues. And also because you are spread very thin in terms of your bandwidth, you're doing multiple things. There are almost 50 departments you're looking at. And in the first place, that person might not have come to you if the systems were working right? So the
Yeah.
focus as a civil servant, particularly as an IAS officer, according to me, should be to focus on the systems more and individuals less.
Yes. Yes.
Of course, individuals
Yes.
are
Definitely.
important. When they come to you, you take care of them. But then, if the systems are working right, most of it wouldn't even reach you, and that is your
Yes.
core job, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that is one main important thing. There are different states in this country also where systems do work. I wouldn't name, but the states differ in terms of developmental aspects, and I'm not putting any kind of a judgment on it, but states are at different levels of progress. So wherever you look at progress in any state, if systems are strong, then things are taken care of easily. Now that's one thing. The second thing is the the citizenry to depend on government for everything. It is not possible. The government can't solve all the issues. The citizenry has too much expectations, and they expect too much from the government. And also, I have seen that a lot of people don't do much. That's also important. So a lot of people are sad, and I would also say that some people are sad because they have not done. I have done, like, I am also from one of these places, and that's why I'm saying this. Some amount of work has to be done. Like, I did my work, my state did my work. It gave me free education. That's why I'm
Right.
here. But free education alone wasn't enough. I had to push. I had to fight and I had to compete. The state has supported me. And similarly, here also, as the state, I am ready to support you. But there are certain things you have to do. You have to do. You cannot have an entire citizenry which is entirely dependent on the state. Then they'll only have complaints. They'll only have complaints because they have not सक्षम नहीं है ये लोग ना कभी सक्षम बनाए नहीं है. That is the issue. So one is building systems. Second is educating the citizenry to tell them that you have to take care of your issues. State is an escalating apparatus, an appellate apparatus. Yeah.
Right.
Both these things.
So I think now winding it down, trying to put the cherry on top of this cake. And nowadays people are used to 5 things to deal with grief, 10 things to do this, 15 things to change your life. I'll also fall into that category and ask you, what are the hard strategies now you follow? Because grief is coming your way. It is not grief is not
it's a constant
instantaneous.
companion.
Grief is always impending, right?
Yeah.
How do you prepare yourself on an everyday basis to tackle grief? Is it a conscious choice? Is it staying healthy? Is it
yes,
taking out your
like few
energies in
things
the
I'll tell
gym?
you. Yeah, definitely. These are proven strategies also. I do believe they work. One is the discipline that I look at myself. I'm good. Yeah, I work out. I dress well. I talk well. I read. I think. I write. I'm happy about that. Whatever happens around me, that's different. But when I look at myself, I am doing well. So that really helps me be strong, and I'm not very unhappy. Even if some grief happens, I'll be able to manage because I am doing right things the right things for myself. One is that. The other thing is strong passions. Very strong passions. Like for me, photography is a very important thing. I feel a lot of my expression of grief comes through it. The pictures I take are tainted with the grief and the joy both. I've had my art really reflects my grief. Art. So art is one way where I express it, and when I showcase it, I can't tell about my grief to other people because I think it is at times I think it's weak and also attention grabbing and other things. So when I show my art to others and when they appreciate it, I think they have understood that I'm sad and I'm okay being sad. Yeah.
Mm.
When they appreciate my art, they console my grief. That's what I feel.
Mm.
So art
Mm.
has been
That's
a
a
very
very good way
important
to put it.
powerful.
Mm.
Another thing is,
And yeah,
another
no,
thing I
no,
would
go
tell
ahead.
you. Yeah, songs, movies, anyways. There, these are all your passions. The other thing is, people look down upon it. But for me, consumption has worked. Shopping has worked. Yeah,
Mm.
it has really worked. Whenever I'm
Mm.
sad or anything, if I order few things and when they come and when I have material stuff around me,
Mm.
yeah, it worked. It worked for me. Maybe in the short term
Right.
or anything, but you can buy again. So
Mm.
it really worked. It really helped me during a lot of time that I go out and have a coffee. I'll buy something, some shirt or some shoes or some pants. Everything helped. It really helped. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I am not one of those people who would discount the ability of consumption to fill the vacuum of your life. It does work, please. Yeah,
No, I think that's very important to say also, because I think most people would relate to it but would not openly mention it.
yeah,
That,
yeah. And people write it.
buying
It's
something
shallow.
new.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
God.
Buying something new
It
does
really
does
it
bring some
elevates.
sort of joy. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah. The
does.
new
I
shoes elevate
agree.
your life.
I mean, simple
Yeah.
things like you're drinking a coffee in your house and then you go out and buy a 300 rupees coffee. It does elevate your
Yeah.
mood in some ways.
Obviously, your coffee
At some
sucked.
times.
Your coffee at your home sucked. The coffee outside was excellent. And people. I'm not saying people to have relationship, to have I mean physical pleasures. If I put it that way,
Mm,
that all helps. People
mm,
actually discount the ability of a physical relationship with other beings. It's extremely
mm,
important. It's extremely.
mm.
It really helps you resolve things. Yeah,
Right.
that way.
And the passive passions, like uh, I'm not saying they're completely that way, but then reading, listening to music,
Mm, mm. Yeah,
does it
yeah.
unconsciously help you resolve some of uh, the trauma and grief?
Yeah, yeah. I think what songs do, yeah, yeah,
Because
it really helps
I'll just
in.
stop you and mention that I know for a fact that you don't read nonfiction. And today is a world of nonfiction. People just are thronging behind these nonfiction books. You are a person who
Yeah,
reads only
yeah, yeah,
fiction. So is there
yeah,
something behind it?
yeah. I mean, isn't life enough non-fiction? I mean, please
Mm,
let's put fiction in books at least. Your life is non-fiction enough. Yeah, I
mm,
don't want to get more non-fiction. I want to have real fiction, and I also think
mm,
that truth is more in fiction. It's much more
mm,
in fiction. It's much more in fiction because we live in a world which finds it difficult to confront itself. We don't confront in a relationship. We don't confront in a friendship. We don't confront a lot of things. Even grief is not
mm,
confronted. So I think
mm.
through fiction and writing, we confront it more. So the truth about grief is always in fiction. Please, non-fiction is bullshit. Yeah,
Right. Uh,
yeah.
Anything else do you think we missed out on?
Anything else we missed
Like
out
something
on?
you
No,
had
I
in your
don't think
mind?
so. Grief as such. Huh? Yeah, I don't know. See, one thing is that what I feel is after a while things turn to nostalgia.
Mm,
You know, yeah, I don't miss my father or miss someone who I've lost, but I really think about the good times and other things
mm,
that I've spent with them. I know it cannot be. I mean, it can't come back, but that nostalgia just exists. And songs and movies for me, it does that. It makes me cry because
mm,
I always think of something. It triggers in me something that I have lost,
mm,
and in
mm,
some ways, it also helps me to kind of be okay with it. Movies are
mm.
great. I love cinema for that matter. Yeah, that's
Right.
largely it. I think. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it raises another interesting question in my head. I personally think we are in an age of constant nostalgia. Like
mm,
1990s and 2000s now is nostalgia for the current generation, and something that came
yeah.
out last year is again looked at very nostalgically. So, are we denigrating or reducing the importance of the word nostalgia itself in terms of how people deal with it? Because you don't want to deal with the present, you always want to live in the past.
Yeah, yeah, true. See, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's also a point. We can see that one way to evade the present is to create a nostalgic past and live in it. That's true. That's true, but I don't like I can speak for myself. I do really like my everyday. I really
Mm.
like being here. You can see it in my house, the way I decorate it. It's because I like my present.
Mm.
If you walk into anyone's life and if they are putting effort in it, you can see it in their homes. You can see that that person is reading or doing something for themselves and for others for that matter. That means the present is there. The nostalgia as such is there. I don't know how to answer.
Mm.
Yeah, I do like the present, but I don't discount the nostalgia. I
Right.
do remember my childhood in rain in Kerala. Yeah, I do like it. I
Mm.
do remember it, and I think
Mm.
some part of me still believes that's better.
Mm.
How much ever I like the present. Yeah,
Right. So I think last question.
don't you? Don't
I
you
do, I
remember the
do,
good
I
days in
do,
Indore? Yeah.
I do, I do.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I try to consciously live in the present more because I think we have a tendency to be to revel in the past sometimes, you know.
Mm.
And that can make you morose after a while. You're living the
Mm.
same
Yeah,
past
true.
life which you have lived. So maybe consciously look forward to what is happening. Coming to the last thing I
Mm.
want to ask you, what is the quickest way to resolve something, some trauma, some grief? What is the quickest thing, the first thing somebody should do?
First thing somebody should do the first thing somebody should do is get call someone who is close to you, or do
Mm,
something that takes your immediate thoughts, because you might harm yourself. I'm very afraid of it.
mm,
You might
mm.
harm yourself. That is the first thing. You have to save yourself irrespective of what. So that can be in different manners. You run out onto the road or something. You don't stay in a closed atmosphere.
Right, right.
You
And
shouldn't
I
harm
think that
yourself at
is
all.
another question linked to it is like many people say that you should seek therapy for grief, especially traumatic grief.
Yeah.
Have you sought it and do you think it is important?
Therapy as such, for a long time I ignored it. Then I sought it for a
Mm,
while, but it didn't make
mm,
much of a difference for me. What really made a
mm,
difference for me is me doing my things and getting to where I want to be.
mm,
Yeah, or I keep on engaging myself in projects,
mm,
which kind of takes effort and also keeps me healthy and not think
mm.
about things which I can't reverse. That
Right.
worked. That really worked for me. Yeah.
Right. So I think that brings us
And
to
one
the
more
end.
thing, one final thing I want to
Mm,
add. One final thing
mm,
that I want to add is, if someone who's your close friend and you can help that person out of grief, while while you're putting effort in that person to help them out, you also resolve you. Yeah.
mm,
Because most
mm,
of the time I tell people things which I want to tell myself.
mm. I think this is what this effort is all about.
Yeah.
To
Oh.
get yeah,
Ah. I get it.
it is a help me help you kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
good, I think that's a good way to close this off, and I would thank you very much to take out the time. Uh,
Thank you,
if
Pratik.
people want to reach out to you, is there a way they can reach out to you?
I Instagram.
Instagram. Okay, so I'll
First
put
follow
that
me
link
and then
somewhere.
message me. Yeah.
Right,
That's very clear.
consumption.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, help me with my grief. Instagram did. So follow me and then pick.
Right. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Vivek. And I
Thank you.
think
Thank you.
this
Thank
was a
you too.
wonderful conversation. I think there were many things which came out during the conversation which I didn't plan on. But I think ultimately it should reach out to at least a few people who might take something out of it. And thank you.